Welcome to the Corporate Escapees. Oh, Scott, sorry, you. So welcome to Corporate Escapees Experts. So this is where we get global experts to come in and talk about the key challenges that we come across all the time in our community. So we run our mastermind, we run a membership, and often people will say, I've got a challenge with this. And then what we do is go out and get the world's best experts to come and answer that. And I'm very excited today to have Scott Gellatly from Scale My Empire in to talk to you about how to systemize your business. So this is a massive pain point for a lot of our clients. They get the marketing happening really well. They get a lot of work they're delivering, and all of a sudden, you know, they can't scale people as quick as they can do the work, and it all goes a little difficult. And Scott, so often in our mastermind, BLG Titans, comes in and saves the day. And what I thought is we give him the great opportunity to help more than just our mastermind clients by getting him on today. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Paul. You know how much I love this topic, and you know, it can be a little bit hard for people to digest. So let's try and break it down to core principles and give people some real value today.
Great. So why don't we just start with a bit of your journey as to how you got to be an expert in systemizing people's business?
Oh, I would love to, Paul. Well, a bit like most of the people that are listening today, I'm a corporate escapee as well. So I grew up, if you like, in corporate land as a project manager for large-scale IT projects. And I guess much like the people that are listening, always felt a little bit restrictive and feeling like I had maybe a greater purpose and a bigger impact that I could create on the world. Not to mention, when you're working in, say, government and large corporate, you tend to spend a lot of time on the bench waiting for things to happen and young and enthusiastic. Although having said that, there are days that I wish I could just sit down on the bench for a moment and relax, which you don't really get as a business owner. But after escaping corporate, spent the last few years now building Scale My Empire into what it is today, and really adapting those kind of enterprise level IT and project management philosophies into something that allows me to help small businesses to systemize their business and leverage technology platforms to work smarter and work more efficiently and become more profitable.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, I think, you know, it went from one point where corporate had all the technology and it was really difficult for small business to get it. And, you know, I remember dealing, when I was at Coke, we dealt with so many small businesses, and, you know, technology was a real issue for them compared to what we had in large corporate. Whereas now I think it's nearly flipped, where I think, you know, that it's really difficult sometimes to change systems within corporate, and small business, you actually got so many opportunities, but I know that can really overwhelm people, and that can confuse them. Now, I know that's one common challenge that we see all the time with our corporate escapees. What about for you? What do you see as some of the biggest challenges people face in systemizing their business?
Well, you're right in the sense that it's sort of flipped in a lot of ways, and small business now actually have all the opportunities and all the options. And small business are also lean enough and agile enough to be able to adopt new technology platforms and systemize their business while they're still relatively small, at a low cost and without too much change and challenges with the team. And the sort of platforms and things that they can do today now, which they may pay $50 a month for per head in the company, would have cost thousands upon thousands of dollars a month 10 years ago. So the sort of technologies and the capabilities of those platforms that are available now at the cost point are effectively supercharging the entrepreneurial movement across the world. And we all know, there's been this movement lately of people moving into small businesses and escaping corporate. And it's now so easy. The barrier to entry is so low now that you can really get in and start your own business. And I think that a big part of that is the fact that these tech platforms are so easily available to set up a business on. But with all that choice comes a lot of challenges, as you sort of identified, right? It's hard to know what platforms are right for your business, what systems you need to produce, and actually how to integrate them all together, not to mention how to bring your staff along the journey. And for sure, it's not a 5-year journey like it might have been in corporate anymore, but there is a journey there that you've got to take your team on. So knowing what to get, how to integrate, how to bring on the team is pain points, but ultimately you're solving a greater pain point in your business, which is kind of like opening the black box. I mean, how many people have you spoken to, Paul, where they feel like there's so much going on in their business, but they don't really have visibility over what it is, particularly as they bring on more team members? There's a lot of stuff going on there in the background. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, all the time. I think, and once again, not to play too much on the corporate, but in a large business, you had a dashboard, you had data, and actually it was nearly the opposite. We had so much information, or sometimes you're paralyzed to actually make a decision. Whereas I find that there's a lot of entrepreneurs, and certainly people that have left corporate, they sort of throw out a lot of those good systems because they want the freedom, which I completely get, and I did the same. But then they want to come back and actually start to overlay and make more fact-based decisions, and often they just don't have the facts in front of them, or they don't have a large enough sample size, etc. And I think that's when getting experts like you to come in, and because you work with so many businesses, you can actually independently give them an assessment rather than them just trying to make their own decision, often based off gut feel.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we've crafted frameworks around this to actually help small businesses to work out, what platforms will actually suit them best, how to put them in, but more importantly, how to get that, data-driven decision-making, which, again, as you said, in corporate, people are quite used to. They used to have that, almost maybe too much, but in small business, they tend to throw that away when we actually know in our guts that we should be making decisions based on a mixture of fact and feel. And these tech platforms that we put in can reinitiate that and give us it at a small business level.
Great. So you've talked about, having too many options, the difficulty in integrating them, also training up staff, and also, poor visibility. Is there any other common challenges that you see before we go into a few solutions?
Yeah, look, I think that as your team grows, profitability tends to drop because team tends to be the biggest cost point for a lot of small businesses, like labour cost. And I see that, as they grow and they start to bring on more people, that awesome margin at the bottom tends to drop and drop and drop. And certainly when we work with our clients, that's actually our number one focus is, well, what do we need to do to actually get that margin back up? How do we optimize the team to be more productive? How do we give you the numbers so that you can make smarter decisions and faster decisions? And what can we do to restructure your systems to be profitable as you scale? Hence the scale my empire.
Yeah, great. And look, I think it's a really good point. I think a lot of focus on customer journey at the moment. I think that's really important, which is the front end of making sure the experience is right. But you also got to make sure that you're profitable, that you can reinvest in the customer journey. And you're right, I just often see people's revenue line equivalent to their indirect line. So we always talk about having, indirects as a percentage of revenue, and often, unfortunately, they go at the same pace, which means that you're just getting a bigger business with greater risk and not actually taking any profit out to reinvest in it. So I think that's when, someone like yourself, and I know we work close together, and I've seen you do some amazing things for some clients, can actually help with that gap. So I think that's a really good one. And I, anyone watching this, I really challenge you to look, and you can actually set it up in your bookkeeping system, whether it's Xero or MyOb or whatever, or QuickBooks, and you can set up your revenue as your indirects, which is your people expense, as a percentage of revenue, and track it month on month. And that helps you actually see the benefits that you're going to get with someone like Scott. So, Scott, why don't now we work through a couple of key solutions? So you've talked about the key challenges. What are some of the key solutions and the way that you frame it for your clients?
Well, look, we've got, I guess, a bit of a 3-step process that we would recommend. And it starts by, and this solves all of those sort of issues, actually, that we talked about. It really starts with information and education, and really working with the founder and the small business owner's team to work out what systems they actually need to scale upon, what would create a meaningful difference to their profit, and how do they create the most amazing customer experience that they can, for their clients, because we know that if we nail that, we'll keep work coming in. So we start by helping them to understand the need for systems and what systems they would need. Then it's an optimization process. So we'll recraft those systems and set them up to be efficient so that the business is running at an optimal pace to create a high-performing team and profitable contracts and projects, and an optimized resource usage and scheduling. And to put that in simple terms, it's making sure we get the most production time out of our team. We'll make them as productive as possible. And then we go into sort of realizing the results of that by setting up the technology platforms and integrating them together to create a nice seamless experience from the point that somebody touches base with you to the point that you've delivered value, with a nice reporting dashboard at the end, which gives you those data-driven insights. So it's a bit of a three-step process. And in that journey, like I said, you're solving the customer experience, you're structuring to become more profitable, you're getting the data-driven insights, but you're also managing the change with your team. So that journey that you go on takes the team along with it. They take ownership of the solution, and ultimately they're trained and ready to use all of those systems at the end.
Yeah. So, Scott, I know a lot of our community find it hard. They're saying, look, I'm already flat out at the moment. I sort of understand what this system could do to my business, but it's the pain of change is just too great. How do you help people get over that pain of that change?
Well, you're right. It's both actually the greatest myth and the biggest challenge to actually implementing these sort of systems in your business is that, I'm too busy, I don't have time, my team are too busy, it all just seems too complicated. And for sure, if you're going to do it yourself, that probably would be the case. But when you look to someone who can actually provide you with a framework where the job's 90% done to begin with, I think that carves a lot of the time and a lot of the complexity out of it. So that's what we aim to do. And then taking my corporate project management experience, we've built a methodology that makes the adoption of these sort of platforms really easy. And it doesn't have to be a big bang approach where we completely rip your business apart and pull it back together again. It's a journey that we go on over time, starting with some high value changes and getting to the destination. It can be split out to suit your own schedule and time and your own, need for change, how much of a priority it is.
Yeah, and how do you make those priorities? How do you work out on a system point of view? There might be finance, there might be marketing, might be sales. How do you determine which one you should go with first, or how do you prioritize it?
It's a great question, and probably what the most common question we get asked is, what do I systemize first? And as a founder, as a corporate escapee, that's someone that's just started their business, the very first thing that you want to be able to systemize is your own productivity. So what you can systemize to get a virtual assistant, for instance, to help you become hyper productive. So your emails, your calendar, perhaps some of your invoicing and billing. So we'll call it admin and back end, right?
Yep.
You want to systemize that first. But once you've passed that hurdle and you've started to bring on a team, the most important thing for you to systemize is how you deliver value. So that might be how you do projects, how you deliver your service. You want to empower your team to be able to deliver for you. Not just simply delegate work to them and expect that they'll be able to deliver in line with your vision and your mission and your values. You have to empower them to deliver for you. And you can only do that by providing them with the process, the expectations of their role, the platform and the result that they want to create or that they are going to be measured against. And I call that sort of a 3PR or 3PM model: people, process, platform, and measurements.
Right.
And they're the three things you want to look at.
Great. And can you give us an example? So give us a real life example of where you've implemented that to help us understand that better.
Yeah, certainly. So let's take a look at, we worked recently with an engineering firm, in fact, that was spending 2.5 full days for 2 people. So we'll call that, nearly 4 people days a month on billing.
Right.
On trying to go through all of their timesheets and all of their work data in order to produce invoices for their clients. And inevitably, not only was that 4 full days of effort that cost them, but things got missed. And so the number one priority for them was to systemize that process. So we looked at who were the people that had to be involved in that process. So we had an accounts person and we had a project manager, and we worked out what they needed to do, the process, the various steps that you need to take to collect all that information and produce all of your invoices. And then we worked out a platform that would, I guess, reduce the amount of time that process would take vastly to make it more efficient. And we found a tool that you could put timesheets in and click a button and produce all of your invoices, which reduced 4 people days down to 1. So 400% ROI and a massive reduction per month, which completely covered the cost of the platform and the setup. And we worked out the measurement being the amount of time it would take to do that system and what it would cost. And sure enough, we hit that in the first month.
Great. And I know, the long debate, and we've certainly had a lot of the discussions around, get a one system that does all versus best of breed. What's your current thinking on which is best, or is it, maybe different by customer? But I'll let you go through that.
I think it is different by customer, and there's always some preconceived views or existing platforms in play that you've got to consider when making that kind of decision, Paul. But my personal preference is to look at what are the best of breed tools on the market that will solve the job, and how can we integrate them together while still getting those insights, those reports at the top end. Because ultimately, this is all about collecting the data so that we can make smarter and faster decisions, right? In some cases, there'll be tools that do this much or do this much, but we're only going to use this much. It's a bit of a process, and our role is to take that pain away from our clients to make that decision for them by assessing their needs, looking at the products on the market, and kind of like architecting, like you'd architect a house, working out what that solution is. And then, again, to use the house analogy, being your construction manager to go and put it into play.
Yeah, because look, one of the things that I really liked about your company is that it's not, yes, I've listened to your problems, etc., but I've got this license fee for this particular platform, so therefore you've got to use this, which is sort of, taking the customer and then turning it into what you have. I think if I've got it right, you're completely agnostic, so it's whatever the best solution is. Great. So how do you keep abreast with, there's so much stuff out there. How do you keep abreast, and how do you do the research to know that you've got the right information to help the clients make the decision?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think step one, and this is really applicable to any business, is that we've got our niche. So we've got the particular style of customer that we best serve, being professional services agencies, your marketing, your engineering, your digital consulting, human businesses.
Yeah.
So that immediately reduces the bandwidth, I guess, if you like, of tools that we have to stay abreast of. And then there's we've built a system for this, right? So we've got different tools out there which alert us of different products and updates to existing products. And every year we reassess and see what's actually top of the pyramid at the moment. So that way we kind of build a short list, I guess, of the tools that are really singing at the moment and that are achieving the best results. So we don't need to look at, the 20,000 products that are on the market at any given time.
Yeah, okay, great. And, we sort of touched briefly before on some of the myths in your area. I know systems in itself can be really confusing. So what are some of the key myths, or some of the other key myths that you see at the moment when it comes to system implementation?
Look, I think the number one is that the myth is you've got to do it all at once. And it can certainly feel like that, going back to, like we said, the business owner that feels like their business is a bit of a black box and they just need to solve that and get their business systemized. It is a journey, and you shouldn't try to do it all at once, because you've got to bring your team along that journey as well. And humans can only accept so much change, if you like. So I think that's probably one of the biggest myths.
Okay, great. Any others?
I think that one of the biggest myths is, just because I know stuff about IT, is that I can fix computers and do absolutely everything that could be IT related. It's a bit like if you find out someone who's good with a hammer, you tend to ask them every question about plumbing to erecting fences. That certainly happens, and you can't be all things to all people. But like I said, we niche down to try to solve that.
Okay, great. And what are some of the things that, you go to a client, you understand the scope, and then they get cold feet or they decide not to progress? What are some of the common objections that you see customers come up with, and what are some ways that you've helped people get through those?
Look, I think that if you've realised that your business is a bit of a black box and profitability is suffering, and you've got that pain point there, you've maybe reached awareness that systemization and technology platforms are the way to solve that. It still feels like it's maybe too hard to start, that you've got to go through this painful change process in order to solve the pain that you're in. You might feel like maybe it's more painful to do that than it would be just to stay at the status quo. And that's probably the first objection we get. And we've solved that by effectively systemizing how to put systems in. We've made technology adoption effortless, and we take people on a journey to achieve it over time, rather than try and rip the floorboards from beneath them and start again. So we try to make it as less complicated as possible, and as obvious as possible. So that's the first.
Yeah.
The next is probably more around cost and the return on that. Even though technology platforms now are literally a small fraction of the cost of what they would have been in corporate, 10 years ago, for $1 million business, it might feel like quite a lot of money each month to pay for the licensing and to get it implemented. And it can be. But I guess we take a bit of a return on investment focus and even do all the calculations for you to help you make the right decision. Because ultimately, if your platform and your systems are going to drive your business, empower a team to deliver and work for you and enable you to grow, it's the difference between a $100,000 business and $1 million business. It's the difference between $1 million business and a $15 million business, right? Mm. So you're not talking about doubling the size of your business. You could be talking about 4xing it or 8xing it or 10xing it. And the investment to make that is actually quite minimal when you look at what that potential return could look like if you can scale. Does that make sense?
Look, it does. And how do most people fund this? So if, I know your sort of work from, roughly $1 million to, 50 million, I suppose, at the top end. But if you look at sort of down that bottom end of business between, say, 1 to 5 million, how do they go about funding this? Because there is going to be a cash flow gap, isn't there? Like, you know, from the license fees, I know aren't a big component, but certainly the fee of implementation. How do they fund something like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different avenues that we look at. The first is that there are actually government grants available through, you know, various departments that you can leverage to help either cover or partly cover the cost of this sort of stuff, and we can help to educate and find those. There's often cost savings as well that we can look at, and to give you an example, we're working with a business right now that actually has a large contingent of dead stock, which if they moved would 4 times cover the cost of our particular project. So we've actually built a system for them to clear their dead stock that will immediately return the value that they need to invest back into the business.
Sure.
And then, of course, looking at their expense profile, you should be spending roughly about 3 to 6% on information technology as part of your P&L. So if you look at that and you can sort of achieve a dollar value out of that, you'll know how much you should be spending on this stuff, and that might even impact how you do your pricing and your revenue model as well.
Okay, great. And what's banks' view on taking on debt to implement systems? You know, are they open to that, or have you come across that at all?
Yeah, look, if you can put forward a business plan that systems are a part of in terms of scaling to meet an end objective, there's lots of different lenders out there that can help. Banks are obviously hyper conservative and are always looking for assets to guarantee against. But there are a lot of other cash flow lenders out there. And if you just Google, you know, cash flow lending for business, you'll find stacks of them that can provide, you know, 3, 6, 12-month loans at a low value that will get you through the initial hump, and then you can pay that out over time. And interest rates are quite good on them as well.
Okay. Great. Excellent. So any other parting advice that you've got for our audience?
I think that if you match that sort of state that I mentioned before, where you feel like your business is a bit of a black box, you feel like maybe profitability is not where it could be, but you just don't know where to start to systemize your business, certainly you know, check out our perfect tech stack online, or have a quick chat to me, because it isn't as hard as you think, and you don't need to do it all at once. And it can be effortless if you go on a bit of a journey, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Well, look, we'll definitely link both of those to the show notes. What we'll also do is have a great PDF that you can download that summarizes Scott's key points when he talked about, you know, people, process, platforms, and measurement. So we'll have some more information on that on the site. But look, it was great having Scott Gellatly from Scale My Empire on today. Scott's a really brilliant member of our BLG Titans Mastermind, and Scott and I work very closely in Scale My Empire as well. But you know, I listen to people all over the world every day on this topic, and I know that Scott is absolutely at the forefront of this, and we're just so lucky to have him in our community, and lucky that he lives in Australia with his lovely family. He could live anywhere in the world, but I think what he does is help service people all over the world by practicing what he preaches. So yeah, it's great to have him on. Also, if you want to find out about more great suppliers like Scott into our community, we've got a download on the website, which is buildlivegive.com. You go there and you can find the 4 essential questions to ask suppliers. So when you're looking at Scott or other suppliers in our community, you know the right questions to ask. And also in that, there's some great on-demand training that supports you in picking the right suppliers. Because as Scott said at the start, when you make the transition from corporate into running your own business, you know, trying to do it all yourself is really difficult, and you need great partners to help. And Scott is one of those great partners, but we've got several others that we vetted and are there for you. So once again, thanks a lot for coming on board, Scott.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for your kind words. I really enjoy the BLG community. It's added a lot of value to me and my business, and certainly helped us grow and done it in the company of some fantastic individuals.
Great. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Thanks.